Good afternoon. Thank you for joining me today for our online programming. My name is Mary Ann Wright, and I'm a 4-H area educator for Lincoln University Cooperative Extension. Let's get started by reciting the 4-H pledge. I pledge my head to clearer thinking, my heart to greater loyalty, my hands to larger service, and my health to better living, for my club, my community, my country, and my world. Thank you very much. Today we are going to be talking a little about Earth Day. Earth Day is celebrated each year on April 22nd, so that's coming up next week. And Earth Day 2020 is exciting because it's actually the 50th anniversary of the first Earth Day. So Earth Day was started in 1970, and it really started when people had concerns over environmental issues. There had been a few oil spills and things like that, and people for the first time really started thinking about what effects humans have on the earth and what we could do to make sure that we had a healthy earth and healthy environment for years to come. So in 1970 they started that, and 20 years later in 1990, that's when Earth Day really went global and it started getting celebrated worldwide. And today it's really known as one of the largest secular observation days in the world. So it is a very big thing, and we want to continue celebrating Earth Day and educating people on the importance of keeping our environment healthy and trying to save the world. So today we're going to be making these fun Earth Day seed bombs, and this requires just a few things, and I'm hoping you have most of those already at home. You might need to get some seeds. We are going to use wildflower seeds for this project. So if you need those, you can grab those in the next couple of days and then make this project. Now this does take a few days to dry, so that's why we're doing it a little bit early, so that way you can have them ready for Earth Day next week. So to get started, all you need is a couple of small bowls, some paper, and I would love if you recycled paper. So I'm going to use some old newspaper that we've got in our recycling bin, and then just scraps of paper. So today I'm going to use blue and green because I'm going to try to kind of make mine look like a little earth. But you can use any kind of color of paper you want. Again, it's going to be really better if you use recycled paper because there's no need to have brand new paper for this project because we're going to be tearing up this paper. So you won't see any words that are on it anyway. So again, once you have your paper, you're going to need some wildflower seeds, and you can get this at most stores right now. So at the grocery store, at big box stores, even at the dollar stores, you can find seeds right now. We also need a little bit of water. Just regular tap water will work. You'll need some type of blender or food processor for this. So any kind of blender will do. I'm just going to use this really small one today. I'm also using a muffin tin, and I just have a silicone muffin tin here. If you don't have a muffin tin, you can use other things. You could use a cookie cutter. You could even just roll it into a ball in your hands. You don't even need this if you want to make your seed bombs in another way. I also have a cooling rack, and this is going to help when we dry out our seed bombs. So those are all the things you need to start your project. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my bowl, and I'm going to go ahead and take my newspaper first and just start tearing up pieces of newspaper and putting them in my bowl here. They don't have to all be the same. We just want to get a good supply of paper. And again, newsprint is good because it sort of will take on the color of our other supplemental paper. So it's a good base to have, and then you can go ahead and add your color to it. So I'm going to add some blue because I'm going to use this for the ocean in my earth. So I'm just going to tear up lots of paper here. Okay, so I'm just going to mix it together since I do have my newsprint and my blue paper there. So I just have a nice mix. Once you have this, the next step is getting it wet. So that's what we have our water for. And I'm just going to cover this paper with water. So you don't have to use a ton of water, but you want to make sure that all your paper is covered. So get your hands in there if you need to, kind of move it around so everything is getting wet. Now you're going to let this set aside for a little bit so that water really gets in there and it starts breaking down some of that paper fiber. So just go ahead if you want to and put the water in and then just let it sit for about 10 to 15 minutes. You can let it sit longer if you want, but maybe give it a good 10 minutes at least so it really starts to break down. Now once we do this, and once it's been sitting for a while, we're going to add it to our blender or to our food processor. So you're going to go ahead and drain any excess water. So we don't want it to just be drenched in our blender. So I'm going to pour off all of that extra water we have. I'm going to take all of my paper fibers here. I'm even going to give it a good little squeeze to kind of get excess water out. We can use that for our next color if we want. You remember you're going to have, for this project, 2 different colors. But again, you can use whatever colors you would like. So I'm going to take my blending container. And I'm going to take that paper and just sort of break it apart. So it's not going in the container in just one big glob. You're going to want to kind of separate it. That will make it easier to blend. So just kind of pull those pieces apart so they're not clumped up there. It's a little easier when you squeeze that excess water out too, to kind of separate them. Get all of your pieces into it. And then you're gonna go ahead and blend that. So this is a step you could ask adult to help with, especially if you're using your mom's blender or your grandma's blender and you want to make sure that you're using it in the correct way and you're being very safe with that since it does have some very sharp blades. But you're going to go ahead and blend this. So I have already done this and you'll see here the end result. So I have my blue and I also did a batch of green here. And the consistency you're going to have, it is like a pulp. So it's not super wet, but it's definitely got some moisture in there and it's really just blended up. So that's what you're aiming for here. Now, if you have more moisture, it's not going to hurt anything. It's just going to take your seed bombs a little bit longer to dry out. So that's why I went ahead and squeezed all that water I could out of it. Okay, the next step, if you have a muffin tin, is to go ahead and grab that muffin tin. Now, the main thing we're using this for is just as a mold. So again, you can use anything else you would like for that. But you're going to take your muffin tin and you're going to start adding some of your paper pulp. So I want to have some landforms on this. So I'm going to take my green first and sort of put the green where I think the land should be when making my earth. Okay, so I have it here and then I have some just blank space and now I'm going to fill in the rest of it with blue. So I'm just going to sprinkle blue around the whole thing because I want to get a solid layer here. So I have now blue everywhere and I'm going to use my fingers and I'm just going to press that down into our muffin tin. So just go ahead and you're just pressing it down because you want a solid layer of paper. You don't want to see the muffin tin through any of your paper at the bottom. So if you see a hole, just take a little bit more paper, put it where that hole is, and then push it down. Okay. So now I have a pretty solid layer here in the bottom of my muffin tin. Now it's not very thick, it's just a little bit. I'm going to see if you can see maybe with the shadow how thick that is. So see, it's very thin there in my muffin tin. Now I'm going to take some of my wildflower seeds and I'm going to sprinkle them just a few into my hand so we don't go crazy and spill the whole package into one of our muffin molds. But I have just a little handful and I'm going to take those and I'm going to sprinkle them over the top of my paper that's sitting in the bottom of my muffin tin. Just spread them out so they're not all clumped in one place. You don't want them to be right on the edge, so try to get them mostly kind of distributed around the center. And then you're going to put another layer of your paper pulp on top. So I'm going to start with my blue this time and just sprinkle a layer of blue right over the top of my seeds here. And then I'm going to take green again and kind of put it in certain locations to represent my landforms. And again, you want to make sure that it's a solid layer. And if you see any seeds that are kind of not covered, you want to make sure to get a little bit more paper and go ahead and cover those seeds. And again, we're just going to push that paper down over the seeds. So just take your time, push it as flat as you can. And then it's going to look like this in the bottom of your muffin tin. So see how mine sort of looks like the earth? So that's what I was going for. But again, you can make any kind of shape. If you want to make a smiley face, you could have yellow paper and then maybe get some darker paper to do the eyes and the mouth. You can have fun making different shapes with this. So now that I have this set, we're almost finished. I'm going to go ahead and let this dry a little bit in the muffin tin. And then after about an hour of letting it dry, I'm going to pop it out. And to pop it out, you just gently put that upside down and just tap the bottom until it comes out. So then you'll have your disc. And this is when you're going to take your cooling rack and you're just going to put your disc right here on the cooling rack, and that's going to help the air circulate all around it and help it dry out a little bit faster. So you can continue making these. You can get several, and so I have some examples of ones that I made yesterday. They're still a little bit damp, so that's why I wanted to make sure we were doing this early enough. So if you do want to give these for a present on Earth Day, then you would have time for them to get really dried out. Because I was thinking this would make a really good gift to maybe set in your neighbor's mailboxes. You can attach a little card to tell them how to plant these. Also say Happy Earth Day, say who it's from, that you're thinking about them, even though you might not be seeing them very often since we're staying in and we're social distancing. But you could even do a little 3-pack. You could put some clear wrap around this and give it as a present. So when you're planting these seed bombs, there's a few things to remember. It's very easy to plant. You could even just toss these out in your yard, especially on days when you think it's going to rain in the really near future, because when it rains, that's when it's really going to start breaking down some of this paper again. It's going to start germinating the seeds inside, and so that is good, and you can just do it right on top of the soil. For a little bit better chance of them actually growing and thriving, you could plant these in the ground, and you don't have to cover them with very much soil, about 1/4 of an inch of soil, or you can also do that in a pot. So if you have a planter and you just want to put this in a planter and just cover lightly with some soil, and then make sure that you're giving it plenty of water, especially until those seeds start to sprout. And then after that, we're hoping that our wildflowers really take off and start growing. So they're pretty easy to plant. Again, you can just toss them or you can cover them with a little bit of soil. But I hope that you will make these, think of creative ways that you can use these and give these to people, and celebrate Earth Day next Wednesday. So again, Earth Day is on April 22nd. So I hope you celebrate. And next week we will also do some fun Earth Day themed projects in our online programming. And I hope you'll join me for those. So again, my name is Mary Ann Wright, and I'm a 4-H area educator for Lincoln University Cooperative Extension. And thank you so much for joining me, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.